Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome back to another Sims 4 speedrunning video, or welcome to the channel if you are new here. So in today's video I'm going to be building in the world of Oasis Springs, which is one of the base game worlds, and I'm going to be building a quite run down Oasis Springs trailer park. So it ends up having 5 trailers in total. We have 3 2-bedroom and 1 bathroom, and then we have 2 1-bedroom and 1 bathroom, and altogether they are built on a 40 by 30 slot. Now pretty much I have wanted to sit down and build a trailer park here in the world of Oasis Springs ever since the full rent expansion pack came out. I was actually building trailers in this particular neighbourhood, which is very deserty. I imagine it gets really hot here, but I have been building trailers in this particular neighbourhood of the world for years, and when we got the full rent expansion pack I was just thinking, well hang on, instead of having loads of individual trailers on all of the individual lots, why don't I sit down and, you know, combine them all and build a really run down trailer park? And for some reason it has just taken me almost a year to do that, but yeah, no, this week I did it. I sat down, I built this trailer park, and I'm so happy with the way this turned out. I tried to go as in detail as I could possible and make this place feel really just rough, to be honest with you. It's very grungy, it's very just like cheap feeling, but also on the same token I really wanted it to have like a sense of community. You know, all of the Sims in the individual trailers, they're mates, and you know, they see each other on the outside area often, and there's loads of things for them to do together. I had so much fun building this, and so yeah, I really hope you like it. But anyway, moving on from that and getting on and talking a little bit more about the build itself and also what I'm doing right now. So currently I'm just coming in and basically decorating the exterior of the first one. The way that I approach this speed build, by the way, I built all the individual trailers and then kind of like decorated around it, and then I'd move on to the next one. I did it in kind of like little slices, if you want to put it that way, but I wanted to start off with this one because this trailer on the inside, there's going to be a little bit of like a mystery attached to it, because pretty much I'm building this in my save file, and so eventually your Sims, if they want to, they can come and move into a trailer park. But the approach that I had on the inside is this one is abandoned, and so hopefully you can kind of already get that gist from the way that I've decorated it on the outside. It's proper groggy, the roof is falling apart, we've got so many different like marks coming down on the walls. And something that I did, which I really wanted to mention, is on the very front I put 2 like black shutters, but then I angled them to make it look like it's falling off, to kind of give more of an idea of this place is a bit run down and it might need a little bit of help if you want to move in. Now I wanted to mention this because I actually got this idea from a fellow Sims builder. Their name is Axie Sims, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. Absolutely phenomenal builder, can I just say. But I was actually looking on Pinterest for like trailer inspo, because the thing is, a lot of trailers in real life, they just look the same. They're just really rectangular and they're quite boring. And so I popped onto Pinterest just to kind of get a general gist of different trailer styles, and I actually saw another Sims build, and yeah, it was this Creator Sims build, and at the front of theirs they did these like angled shutters, and I just thought it looked so cool. And so yeah, I definitely wanted to give credit there. That wasn't my original idea, but I just thought it really helped make the idea of the point that I'm trying to put across of this place is abandoned, it's run down, it's rough, you're going to need a little bit of money if you want to do it up. But on the exterior I placed down like a mattress with like a tyre around it, some like planks of wood. I also already placed down the for rent sign, so if your Sims want to, they can actually move in to this trailer. Now, like I said, there ends up being 5 trailers in total, and I fully furnished 4 of them. This one is like partly furnished on the inside, but like I said, I want there to be a little bit of mystery and basically a bit of a backstory that I've got for this trailer. It's been sitting in this trailer park for a few years now because the previous tenant passed away. Now on the inside I did decorate it, so it's got some counters, it's got a stove, it's got a fridge, it has all the bathroom appliances, but I was just having a little bit too much fun and I decided to make it look like it was a crime scene on the inside. Now what I mean by that is I really wanted this trailer to kind of tell a story in the way. For all the other individual trailers, so for the other 4 ones, they've all got Sims living in them. I've got a quite in-depth backstory for all of the different Sims that is going to be living in this little like community trailer park. But for this one I wanted to still tell a story even though it was kind of empty. So on the inside I ended up placing down, it's actually meant to be like an outline of a Sim's body on the floor. We got it from the debug menu and it came with the Get to Work expansion pack, I believe, off memory. But I'm not sure if you're familiar with this one particular apartment that is in the world of San Myshuno. You move in and there's literally an outline of a body on the floor and you cannot delete it. On the inside of the abandoned trailer, don't worry, you can delete it after some time. You can keep it there if you wanted to try and tell that story a little bit more, but I basically made it look like there was an outline of a body on the floor. I like fenced it off with all these different like metal fences. I really wish we had some sort of like tape that I could put around it, like crime tape, but we didn't really have that. But then I ended up placing down like a crime report on the kitchen side. I tried to place down different marks in the angle where the body was. You can kind of tell a story there. It was just so much fun. And yeah, the whole idea behind the first trailer is it is abandoned. You can move in if you want to, and I actually was able to make it into a starter home. And so if you create a sim in CAS and you want them to live in this trailer park, you can pretty much move in straight away. I have actually noted down, because I did play test this multiple different times, but I play tested it as the idea of your sims to move in to the empty one, and it costs 58 simoleons per day. And in total, the furnishings on the inside, so the kitchen counters, the fridge and the bathroom appliances, alongside with an outline of a body on the floor and cones and police reports and stuff, all of that in total cost 5,040 simoleons. And so if you just created a sim in CAS, you know, and you wanted them to live in this community, your sims, when they move in, they would have 14,960 simoleons left to, you know, decorate it. Maybe they want to completely refurb it and they want to do a little bit of a fixer-upper or something. And so yeah, it's actually going to be one of the starter homes in my save file, which is so exciting because it's kind of like attached to a already built-in community. And like I said, for this trailer park, each of the individual trailers, they've got their own storylines, and I try to do it so all the different sims in their own like little homes, they kind of like intertwine with their neighbours, and like their storylines kind of like cross paths in a way. But either way, moving over from that and actually getting on and talking about the next trailer that you can see that I've started at the very back, the kind of like bluey green one. Now this trailer I actually built for a pre-existing sim who is called Johnny Zest. Now when you enter a brand new save file, the lot that I'm building on, which by the way, if you're ever curious on the lot that I'm building, it's always in the top left corner of the screen, so you can kind of use it as a little bit of a reference point. But when you enter a brand new save, there is already a sim living here. It's already inhabited. There's already actually a trailer living here, but it's only just the one, and by default in a brand new save file it's meant to be Johnny Zest's trailer. Now currently I'm coming in and just doing the floor plan for this trailer. He does end up now having a roommate, but when I wanted to kind of like put his little stamp on this trailer park, hopefully you can kind of see that it's meant to be for Johnny Zest, that one, because I purposely painted his trailer kind of like this bluey green kind of colour, because originally in a brand new save file it used to be blue, but the thing is the Sims team actually recently went in and updated some of the iconic towny family homes. So I think now the new trailer when you enter a brand new save file is meant to be like a beigey kind of colour, like a bit of a brown. But the one that I know and the one that I've looked at for a few years, it was blue. And so in this trailer park I wanted you to be able to enter it and, you know, see a blue trailer and be like, must be Johnny's. And so yeah, it was a small thing, but I just wanted to mention it because to me it makes sense that he lives now in a blue trailer. But in terms of Johnny himself, in case you've just never heard of this sim or you've never seen this sim before, I will pop a little picture of what he looks like on the screen. You might notice him, maybe you've seen him in the background of maybe the bar in Oasis Springs or something, but by default he wears this little like blue plaid blazer and he has these like green trousers with some like loafers, and he's got kind of like a slick back hairstyle. This is what he originally looks like when you enter a brand new save file. However, I've already come in and I actually gave him a makeover ages ago, but I'm now going to pop a picture on the screen of what he's going to be looking like in my save file, and I am just so happy with the way that I did his makeover. I just love the way that he turned out. Originally, like I said, he had like the blue blazer, he had some like little loafers going on, but to me, I wanted to do a complete 180 with his whole entire aesthetic. And so now in kind of like the makeover version, he has sleeves of tattoos. I might pop multiple pictures of his outfits on the screen so you can kind of see his body in more detail sounds a bit strange, but I just kind of want you to see like the tattoos that he's got on his chest, on his arms. I've given him a little bit of leg hair. He wears pretty much the same shoes for the majority of his outfits because in my mind he ain't got that much money, because when you enter a brand new save file he's meant to be this struggling comedian, kind of struggling to make ends meet, and for my save I wanted to continue with that. And so in my head I'm thinking, you're not going to have loads of different shoes at your resources. And so yeah, he does wear the same shoes for multiple different outfits, but I also gave him like a septum piercing, like he's got a nose ring now, and I also gave him slightly longer hair, and I decided to dye it a little bit of a more platinum blonde colour. Now in terms of his original backstory, I'm going to keep it quite short and sweet until we move on into all the different respected trailers, because I've got so many different stories that, like I said, they kind of like intertwine with each other, and the Sims that live in these trailers, they know their neighbours. Some might know their neighbours a little bit better than what they probably should do, but I'm going to try and keep it so I'll give you like a brief overview of the storyline, and then when I actually move in and I start decorating their individual spaces, I'll then kind of like expound on it, just because then I think it's a little bit more fun, and it could also be a little bit easier to follow along with. But basically, originally, his, I'm going to say like OG storyline that the Sims team gave us was Johnny Zest is in fact a stage name. It is not his full legal name, and he's got this dream of being a really famous comedian. He's not the best at it, bless his heart, but basically his household biography states that he was disowned by his family, and his family apparently are meant to be Jeffrey and Nancy Landgrab. If you're unfamiliar with who these Sims are, I'll pop a little picture of Jeffrey and Nancy on the screen so you can kind of familiarise yourself. You might have seen them. I'm assuming you must have, because they're quite a well-known family, I feel like. But yeah, that is meant to be his mum and dad, and pretty much the original storyline that Sims team gave us was he basically didn't suit the family values. He just had a completely different idea of what he wanted to do with his life, and so he kind of left his family, and he now, when you enter a brand new save file by default, he now lives in like a little single trailer over here in this neighbourhood. But in my version of him, I've made it so he now lives in a trailer park. Like I said, I'm going to expand on this so much more when we actually move in and I start decorating like his own individual space. But something that I did want to mention is he now does have a roommate, and I imagine that his roommate is in a band. And so hopefully you might have seen at the very front of their trailer, I placed down, it's kind of like this flag thing, but it looks like it's got a skull on it. And I was thinking that was his roommate's band's almost like logo, or kind of like the brand in it for the band. But something else that I really wanted to mention really quickly, because I was so happy with this idea, I know I've moved on to the other trailer, but if you was to catch a glimpse at Johnny Zest trailer in the very back corner, you might have noticed I placed down 1, a broken oven on the outside, and then 2, a pizza on the roof. Now, like I said, coming into this trailer park, I really wanted this build to feel very like run down. I feel like all the Sims that live here, they don't have tons of money. Like I really want it to be quite a rough place in terms of like the interior decorations and the exterior decorations as well. But I was using the live edit menu and the debug menu so much in this build, and one pack that is really good for kind of like more rundown kind of vibes is the Eco Lifestyle expansion pack, because from that DLC we have so many different like broken down appliances. There's kind of like an empty bathtub, there's an empty fridge and a fridge door, but there is also an oven. And so at the very front of Johnny's trailer, on kind of like the right hand side, I end up placing down a broken down oven and a broken down oven door. And by the way, I followed it through. On the inside, they don't have an oven, because I imagine that their oven is now outside in their like front yard because it is broken. But I was thinking that their oven broke, and recently Johnny and his roommate have really gotten into the series Breaking Bad, and so because their oven broke, they haven't really been able to buy themselves food to cook, and so instead they have been ordering a lot of different pizza deliveries. And I had it in my head that either Johnny or his roommate, that would be really funny if instead of actually eating one of their pizza deliveries that was meant to be their dinner, one of them threw it on the roof as kind of like a Breaking Bad reference, because they've just started the show. I know it sounds silly, but I was so happy with that idea. Also, if you've never seen the TV series Breaking Bad, highly recommend. It's a very good watch. It's one of them series as well where there's like, I think it's like 5 or 6 seasons, and there's like 30 odd episodes per season, something like that. It's a very long watch, very good watch though. And yeah, basically you don't have to have watched Breaking Bad to know about what I'm talking about, but basically at one point someone throws a pizza on the roof and it just stays there, and I just thought it was really funny. And when I did the oven idea, I was thinking, well, I've got to follow this through onto the inside of their trailer, you know, I can't actually give them an oven if there's one in the front garden. And so then I was like, well, maybe they order a lot of pizzas. And then my mind just went to Breaking Bad, and so Yeah, I just wanted to mention that. But either way, moving over, as you can see, I've now started building or actually decorating around the third trailer. Now, this third trailer is a little pink one. And by the way, I tried to purposely make every single trailer a different colour. And so there ends up being the white one, the greeny blue one, this pink one, and then the last two ends up being kind of like a creamy colour and then almost like a mustard kind of tone of yellow. But for this one, this is going to be a family home. Now, for the Sims that I imagine that live in this one, I imagine that in particular the mum is very out there. For starters, I imagine that she is someone that does tarot card readings, and so eventually when I actually come in and I decorate kind of like their front porch area, you'll see I end up placing down what in my head is their dining room table or like their dining room seating. However, she's taken up the idea of she can now read tarot cards, and so she now offers tarot readings to all the local people of either Oasis Springs or maybe just in this little trailer park. I imagine she's a sim that is very out there in terms of it. She loves colour, she loves pattern, she's very vibrant. I imagine she also has like loads of bangles up her arms and she wears lots of rings. I imagine she always has her hair clipped up in, you know, one of them like claw clippy things. I can just picture what she looks like, but I imagine that she is so in her own world that she is completely unaware that her partner, maybe potentially husband, is actually having an affair with another fellow resident of this trailer park. Now, I'm saying partner or potentially husband because I'm still kind of debating what way I want to turn the storyline, and maybe this is some, because I'm going to tell you probably both of them, but maybe you can help me decide on what avenue to go down, because the end result is honestly just going to end up being the same. But pretty much the sim that this mum would end up sharing a bed with, you know, when she goes to sleep over night time, they are someone that is pretty much with them because very soon she's going to come into some money from some inheritance. And the idea that I've got is the father figure, in a sense, that sleeps in that trailer. He basically wants a little bit of that money and he wants to run away with another one of the residents of this trailer park and kind of like use this poor woman's inheritance to do so. But yeah, I'm kind of debating on whether they should be married or maybe they should be, you know, engaged and they're going to get married, and as soon as they've got married, as soon as they've signed them documents, he's going to do a runner. I'm still in two minds about it, but there is still a lot more to unpack with that family. However, I want to talk about what I'm doing right now because currently, as you can see, I'm coming in and I actually just placed down a bar inside of a bus. Again, like I've already said, there is so many different intertwined storylines that is going on in this little community, this community trailer park, but I also really want to talk about what's on the screen, and then I just feel like it's better if I explain in the individual storylines when I'm doing the furnishing, because then you can kind of follow along with the story a little bit easier. But one of the things that I mentioned at the very start is I really wanted to build a trailer park that has a big sense of community. You know, all these different individual sims, they know their neighbours, they're mates with their neighbours. Some of them, like I just mentioned, that they know their neighbours a little bit better than what they probably should do. But I really wanted there to be lots of different activities for your sims to interact with within this trailer park. And so over here, as you can see, yeah, I just placed down a little bar and attached it to this like broken down bus decoration. Now the bus itself, this is from the Werewolves game pack, and then the bar that I slotted into the downstairs portion, that is from the StrangerVille game pack. And pretty much for this section, I knew that I wanted to have some like community based items that your sims can do with other members of this trailer park. So I knew that I wanted there to be like a radio station, I knew that I wanted there to be a little barbecue area, and I knew that I wanted there to be a bar. However, originally over here where I placed down it's like black and white rusty bus, I placed down a camper van, one that we got from the StrangerVille live edit menu. And pretty much my idea was I was going to come in and like clutter up and decorate the top portion of the camper van and make it so, you know, your sims can actually go up there and there'll be things for you to do and interact with. However, when I moved over and I actually filtered through like the bar category where we've got all the different bars in the game, I noticed that we've got this rusty bus from the Werewolves game pack, and so yeah, I swapped it out and then I was still able to make it. So on the bottom portion, and hopefully you would have noticed, I play tested this as I was kind of like building it, but I placed down a bar on the bottom portion of the bus, made sure that my sims could, you know, like make a drink and stuff, but then I also placed down a ladder on the inside of the bus, and then again you would have seen I play tested it, and yeah, your sims can get to the top portion of the bus. Up there I ended up placing down a bubble blower a telescope, and then also a pool floaty, which in my head I was thinking that would be like a sun lounger, because you know sometimes if you're on holiday or something and you can't find a sun lounger, so you kind of just sit on a pool floaty as kind of like a make-do situation. I was thinking it was a similar idea with the pool floaty on the roof, but it was more so because they couldn't put a sunbed up to the roof of the bus. But yeah, that little corner is basically somewhere for your Sims to go and socialise of an evening. Like I said, coming into this build, I really wanted this trailer park to have such a sense of community. Like, I really wanted your Sims to be able to move in to that little abandoned trailer, and if they want to, they can interact with their neighbours. You know, they can go and have a drink with them around the bar, or they could use a bubble blower with them. I do also place down some other like interactable objects around the area, and so just over here with this, like one of the last trailers that I'm building, by the side of it I end up placing down a little paddling pool. There also ends up being a basketball hoop, and then on the outside of some of the gardens as well I place down interactable objects, so all the gameplay outside isn't just tied to that one little corner. I tried to almost like dot it around, so there's just basically so much gameplay in this build, and I really just tried to make it a really fun trailer park for you to play in. But something that I want to mention, which I don't think I've actually done it at this point in time, but you can see I've placed down on kind of like the right hand side a green basketball hoop. Pretty much in a second you can see I placed down the basketball hoop a little bit closer to where that little paddling pool is, and then I was thinking, well, maybe the teenage boy that lives in the trailer across from this one, maybe he likes to play basketball, and very recently he was playing basketball, he threw the basketball a little bit too high and it ended up going onto the roof of this trailer over here, and it's kind of wedged in between some of the vents. I say that, I don't even think I have told you that there is a teenager on this lot yet, but there's actually two. One of them lives in the pink trailer, and then one of them lives in the like mustardy colour trailer, which I'm actually yet to build. But yeah, my idea was, well, what about if one of them was playing basketball one day and just threw the ball a little bit too high, and then it ended up resulting in being wedged on their neighbour's roof in between like the roof vents and stuff. I just personally feel like that is just so realistic. I mean, growing up when I was younger, we always used to play football in my garden, and honestly the amount of times that my brothers used to kick over the football by accident into our neighbour's garden, and then we'd all have to go over there and then have a massive discussion who was going to knock on the door and ask for our football back. And I mean, my neighbours were sweet as, they were an elderly couple, loved them dearly, but they used to go and get our football, and I just feel like that's realistic. And yeah, it just kind of really made me feel like this is a lived-in trailer park. You know, there's a football on someone's roof, there's a pizza on someone else's, there is broken down bits in some of the more abandoned parts of the trailer, and I had so much fun, like I said, doing this whole entire build. I was just really just trying to make it as detailed and as realistic as possible. But yeah, the last trailer that you would have just seen me build over here, this kind of like creamy one, this is for a couple who I was thinking are very problematic and very honestly toxic. Again, this is going to be a very short and sweet version of their storyline. I'm actually going to decorate their trailer first, so you'll kind of hear their storyline in depth to start off with, and then as we go out through the rest of the trailers, they kind of all intertwine with one another. But the relationship, I imagine, consists of a guy and a girl, and basically the girl in that particular trailer is actually the second participant, if you want to put it that way, of the affair that is happening on the Oasis Springs trailer park. Now, apart from her affair, I imagine her to be quite a young, like quite pretty looking girl, and the idea that I've got for her for my save file is that she's going to be working in one of the bars in Oasis Springs, and basically the idea that I've got is she would always flirt with customers when they come in. Like, she would always just have a little flirt on, maybe to get some more tips, you never know. But she is someone who is a very outgoing character, she's very charismatic, but basically one of the other residents of the trailer park that she lives in, you know, often comes into the bar that she works, and basically, cut a long story short, they started having a bit of a secret affair, and basically have conjured this plan up that eventually this guy who lives in the pink trailer is going to leave either his wife or maybe his long-term partner that he's engaged to, and with the money that he gets from his partner's inheritance, they are going to do a runner and they are going to get out of this rusty, dusty trailer park. And I mean, in the toxic relationship, the guy and the girl, I imagine that the guy is also not picture perfect. I basically also imagine that he maybe has a bit of a wandering eye, and maybe he also is having a little bit of a affair, but maybe he just has casual affairs kind of thing. I actually have this whole entire storyline for him alone, that he wants to one day be Oasis Springs' next rap artist, and he's really into rap music and he wants to be a rapper. But the thing is, in The Sims, we can't really do that in the game. However, if you have the Get Famous expansion pack, there is this particular item that your Sims can produce music tracks on, and so you'll see shortly when we move into their trailer, I actually placed that down in replacement of their dining room table. But the last trailer that you would have seen me build, it was a very small, short and sweet one, the mustard one at the very front. That one ends up being for a young girl and her teenage sister. Now I'm actually going to pause on the storytelling overview for the Two Sisters trailer, purely because the way that I built their trailer itself, I kind of like built the shell and structure, and then I didn't decorate around it immediately. And you will see in a minute, I revisit that area and I do some like exterior decorations. But in some of the decorations, it kind of like ties into their lore, and so I'll tell you about that in just a second. Plus also, I want you to talk about what I've got going on at the very back of the build. Now the way that I built this trailer park, I could have very easily made room for a thick trailer if I wanted to, but the thing is, I didn't want it to feel almost like claustrophobic if your Sims were to live here. And so the way that I kind of approached it is you kind of drive in, if you want to put it that way, through like the entrance area of the build. You've got two trailers on your left, you've got two trailers on your right, you've got one trailer at the very end, the bluey green one, which in the end is for Johnny Zest. But then either side of Johnny Zest's trailer, there's kind of like filler space. On the right side over here, this is where we end up having that like rusty bus that ends up having a bar in it. It's where you can go on top of the bus and you can like use the bubble blower, use the telescope. In the downstairs section, we've got like barbecue area, we've got a little dance floor. It's one of the dance floors though that you can't see in gameplay. But basically it's one of the ones where if you click on the floor in gameplay, then your Sims can just like randomly dance there. But on the right back side, it's where we have like the entertainment space. But then also we have what I was imagining to be like water tanks and stuff. However, on the left hand side of the trailer, I ended up placing down a little bit of landscaping and then also another water tower. But basically when I was coming in and I was kind of like finishing up the exterior, I was just thinking of the teenagers that live in this trailer park, and I really wanted to create them kind of like their own little personal hangout space. And so it was very quick, but you might have noticed at the very back I placed down a little campfire and then also some deck chairs, so the two teens in this trailer park can kind of have it as a space for just them two. The way that I built it in the speed build, I made it so there was one campfire and then 3 deck chairs, and then I placed like a teenager's backpack. But then when I came in and I was playtesting, I really liked the idea of, well, what about if they've got a teen friend who maybe is a bit of a runaway teen and maybe they're helping them like run away or something. And so I also end up placing down a sleeping bag in that little very back section for maybe a homeless Sim, or maybe the teens in this trailer parks, maybe it's their friend who is, you know, like sleeping there for a little while. But you can see that I've now revisited the very front of like the mustard trailer for the Two Sisters, and the reason why I wanted to speak about it when it was on the screen is because if you notice at the very front, I've got a 3-seater sofa and I've also placed down kind of like a moving box onto it. Now pretty much the idea that I've got for this particular household is with 2 of the sisters, one of them has lived here for maybe like 3-4 years, maybe somewhere around that kind of guideline, but then the teen sister has maybe moved in within the past year or so, and basically the little mustard trailer only ends up having 1 bedroom and 1 bathroom. And so the idea that I had in my head is, well, what about if the older, like the big sister, said to her younger sister, look, if you want to come and move in to my trailer, you're more than welcome. You can have my bedroom and I'll replace our sofa and I'll buy a pull-out bed. And so they've got their old 3-seater sofa that used to be in their living room, kind of at the front of their trailer, kind of like in their yard, and on the inside of that trailer you'll see when we move over, but I made it so the older sister has a bed out of a sofa. It's kind of like a little pull-out bed situation. I was also thinking that the older sister is in a relationship with Johnny Zest's roommate, but I'll speak about that when we actually move over, because I don't want to get a little bit too confusing, because currently over here, as you can see, I'm now coming in and doing some more like in-depth decoration of the Toxic Couples trailer. I really hope everything that I've said so far is making sense. I'm trying my hardest, trying to tell you like little snippets of individual Sims and their storyline and kind of like their lore, because it kind of ties into their decoration like outside their trailers. But then I also want to tell you about other things, and then I just really hope that you're following along with me, and I really hope that I haven't confused you in any way. But hopefully now that we're actually starting to come in and decorate, like the individual trailers, hopefully it all will make a little bit more sense. But something I did want to mention is for every single trailer, they do kind of have like their own like front yard area. But the way that I built this lot, I built it purposely so the front yards for each of the trailer are kind of like open to all, and anyone can use their decorations. Well, I say decorations, they're furniture pieces, but I place them down as for decoration. But on the outside of this trailer, I end up placing down a washing machine and a clothing line, and then I also did place down a tiny little dining area, and that is because you can see that I've now moved over, and on the inside, where I imagine the dining room table used to be, is now home to the music making station. So like I've already said, for this trailer, it is a toxic couple. They should not be together. The couple consists of a guy and a girl. The guy, I was personally thinking, he has a day job of being a manual labour of some regard. Maybe he's an electrician. Maybe he's a sparky, or maybe he's a builder, maybe he's a plumber. I'm not too sure, but I'm going to have him have one of the part-time jobs in the game. And then when he's not at work, he spends the majority of his time over here trying to produce songs, because like I said, this sim in particular, he wants to be a music artist. Now, we have actually got an entertainment career that launched with just the Sims 4 base game, so technically I could make it so this sim is actually in that career branch. They're meant to be like this musician or something. But to me, in my mind, whenever I think of that particular career branch, I really think of like established well artists. I'm thinking of like Taylor Swift. Whereas I'm thinking that the sim that is in here, no Taylor Swift, I'm sorry. Like this sim, the complete opposite of Taylor Swift, if I can be completely honest with you. I imagine that they love rap music, they love producing all these different rap songs. I imagine that they make very like low budget music videos, and they probably film them around this trailer park. Also, I imagine loves a party, and so hopefully you can kind of see around like their little like music making station, I placed down loads of different red cups as like fake decorations. Now the red cups that I use, they're actually kind of like pretend drinking cups, and that's why I'm calling them like fake decorations, because they look like the iconic, to me, American party like red cup kind of thing. Because in the UK it was never really a thing. Like if everyone had a house party, it seems like in the US you guys would have like red cups at your party. That's not really a thing here. Just use a glass, just use a pint glass that someone's mum has definitely nabbed from a pub or something. But we don't really have red cups. But to me, it is just such a like party thing, and I always see red cups in like films or TV shows and stuff. And so when I was decorating kind of like the music station, I went through the debug menu and I found this one particular red cup. But in game there is that animation where basically if you want to be a little bit mischievous, you can throw a drink at someone. One of the different cups that is used in one of them animations is the red cup that I've used. So if you're curious, the little red cups on the side, that they won't spoil over time. They're kind of like for decorational purposes. And I imagine that the Sims that live in this particular trailer, more likely the guy, big party animal, and so oftentimes they end up throwing parties here. Now, like I said, this couple, they just really should not be together. I imagine that they are so badly suited. I don't know why they would have got together in the first place, if I'm being completely honest with you, but people do sometimes. But I was thinking that both the guy and the girl, more so the girl, are actually seeing other people, and they are both having little like things on the side. The girl very much more than the boy, because I imagine the boy maybe has occasional kiss at the club when he maybe goes to like different clubs and he tries to play his music in attempts for people to actually download it on Simify, if you want to put it that way, or Sims Music. But maybe he has the odd smooch with someone in a club. Whereas the girl that lives in this trailer, she's actually a little bit devious. Like, she's actually a nasty bit of work, because I'm thinking that she's only staying with this guy momentarily to see if his career ever takes off, even though I imagine that she knows that it probably won't, because I imagine that she probably doesn't even like his music. She probably says to him, yeah, it's great, but it's actually really bad, like she does not like it. But he's probably staying with him in the attempts that maybe one day it will take off, and then, result, she's going to get like a really nice bag or something. But I'm actually thinking that, yeah, she's probably gonna end him very soon, because like I said, she's having an affair with her neighbour that lives only across the road. Now, like I said, the girl in this relationship, she is going to be working in a bar in my save file. That is going to be her career. And the way that I'm going to set it up is I'm going to build a bar in my save file for Oasis Springs, but I'm going to make it so it's going to be a small business. And then that way, if I've made it a small business, I can then assign all the different tasks that I want, Sims to do when they visit the bar. But then also I can get it so I have different employees that work there, and yeah, she's going to be one of the employees in one of the bars in the world of Oasis Springs. And like I said, I imagine that a lot of the time when she's at work, she probably flirts with a lot of the customers. I imagine that she probably does it for tips, but then sometimes does it because she just thinks it's fun in a way, and she's probably a little bit bored, and yeah, she's just going to be a bartender, if you want to put it that way. This is one of the reasons why I love the Businesses and Hobbies expansion pack, because the thing is, with the Businesses and Hobbies EP, I can actually put this into fruition. Like, I'm going to make it actively in my save file. So, sometimes when you meet a sim and you're trying to what's your interest? What's your favourite colour? What's your career? When you ask her for her career, I'm going to be able to set it up so she'll be like, oh, I work at XYZ bar. I just think it's just such a fun idea for a particular sim. And the thing is as well, the way that careers work in The Sims 4, we've got so many well-established careers. Like, we've got, your sim could be an astronaut. Do you know what I mean? Like, 9 to 5, what are you doing? Going to space? Like, we've got so many unrealistic jobs for the most people. I've really liked the fact that with the Businesses and Hobbies expansion pack, it kind of gives us an introduction to have our sims just have regular day jobs or night jobs. I imagine she probably works nights, but I just love the idea of the Businesses and Hobbies expansion pack, because yeah, it really helps put this idea into fruition in a way. But yeah, basically her idea is she's going to either stick it out with this boyfriend that she doesn't even really like, let alone love, but she's either going to hold out and see if he was ever going to be able to produce something that will actually get his name out there, so he's actually going to become a well-established artist. Or if that fails and it all hits the fan and he never gets out of it, her plan B is she's going to basically do a runner with her neighbour, the one that lives in the little pink trailer. Also imagine, by the way, just to add to her toxicness, she's also really good friends with his either wife or partner. But yeah, that is the first trailer. But now moving over, as you can see, I've now moved on into the second one, and this is the one that I actually started off at the very start of this video, the abandoned one. And this is the one that I tried to make into a bit of a mystery. It's a little bit of a crime scene in here. Now, like I've already mentioned, I was able to make this into a starter home. So, I mean, if your Sims do ever fancy living in a trailer park in the world of Oasis Springs, might need to bring your Hoover because it's a little bit dusty and just a bit gross in here. But yeah, this is going to be one of the starter homes in my save file. But I tried to, even though it's a starter home and it's going to be empty, I really tried to tell a story of someone popped their clogs in the front room. You can see that I placed down an outline of a body, and like I've already mentioned, it's from the get to work debug menu, but it's one of the ones that you can delete if you don't want to have it in the front room. I suppose once you actually get your Sims to move in here, if you did decide to, you would probably end up deleting that. And so I didn't want to place down an object which you couldn't remove, because how frustrating would that be? And so yeah, don't worry, you can delete the outline of the body, but just behind it I purposely placed down little marks of where I imagined something happened to the body, and that's the reason why the body is on the floor. But then I really wanted to kind of tape off the area where the body was, because I was thinking that this was a crime scene and maybe it's still an ongoing investigation. What happened to the sim that used to sleep in this trailer or live in this trailer? And so I, instead of having tape around it, we don't really have anything like that in the game, and so I decided to opt for some metal fences in the front room, which are just from the Growing Together expansion pack, and then I also placed down some cones around the body as well. I did also add some finer details into the front room. So on one of the kitchen counters I placed down, which in the game it is literally listed as a witness report, I placed it down next to the oven, but with the Get to Work expansion pack, basically if you have your sim be a detective and some sort of crime has happened, you'll get a sim to basically give a witness statement. I think that's what it's called, but basically that is a little bit of paper that a little police sim would write on. And so yeah, I just popped it into the front room. But then also did some other little details, and then also in the bathroom it was very quick, but I placed down a bathtub, a toilet and a sink. So alongside with the kitchen counters, fridge and oven, this is move-in ready. You have technically everything that your sim needs. You might just need to buy a bed, but in terms of like living appliances, you're sorted. But I placed down a bathtub into the bathroom, and then I got a little like fountain thing, and I basically went into live life mode, never know how you say it, but I went into gameplay mode, and I made it so then it was actively like squirting out water, and then I rotated it with the tool mod. And so if you do get your sim to move in there is a leaky bathtub. Even though saying that, it was actually fully working, like fully playtested this whole entire build, and I ran into one problem, which is actually in the very last trailer, which I'll speak about. But yeah, your sims can still have a bath in the bathtub, even though there is literally a fountain going into it. But either way, besides the point, moving over. As you can see, I've now moved on into the next trailer, which is Johnny Zest's new trailer. So this is the trailer on the outside, which, if you remember, ends up having a broken down oven door alongside with a pizza on the roof. And basically the idea that I had was Johnny Zest's oven broke. Don't know what he did to it, but it is broken. And so you can see in his kitchen, I purposely made it so there is completely empty space waiting for a new oven to be installed. But then I just didn't want to leave it as it was. Like, it looked very bare. And so I got some pipes that are just from the debug menu, and I sized it down to make it look like it was maybe gas pipes going outside. I don't even know if that's a thing. I've got an electric oven. We don't even have gas in my house, so I don't know if that's actually really a thing, but I placed down the little pipes, and then also some sort of like ventilation, and then behind it as well I placed down some marks on the wall, because I was thinking when the people who removed the oven, saying that it was probably Johnny and his roommate, but when they did move the oven, I made it look like they've both scratched either side of the counter pieces. So I don't know if you would have seen, I got the tool mod and I got some like different scrappy like decorational things, and I put it either side of the counters, but then also behind where the oven used to sit I also put some marks, and then also kind of like an oil stain or a water stain of something, and then in the corner I wanted to give him something, do you know what I mean? Like, I didn't want to leave him completely bare and hungry, and so at the minute I placed down one of them like little microwave oven things, and I was thinking that I'd use that instead of having, you know, like a full-on, you know, oven. His current oven is in the garden. But then when I was playtesting, that oven that I placed down into the kitchen, it just felt too nice. Like, it just felt too expensive in a way. And so you'll notice in the screenshots, I did decide to swap it out just for a very cheap, and actually the cheapest microwave in the game. But on one of the kitchen counters as well, I placed down another pizza. So you've got one on the roof and you've got one on the kitchen counter. Now, something that I did want to mention, over time, both of the pizzas that I placed down into this build, they are going to spoil. But, however, I was thinking one on the inside the trailer, it kind of adds to the ambience, you know what I mean? Like, it just kind of adds to the vibe that I was going for. But then secondly, if you want to, you can fully just delete them and it will be easy to do so. But the one on the roof, that again, that will spoil over time. But I thought about it when I was playtesting, and I was thinking, well, you might still want to have a forever pizza decoration on this Sims trailer, you know. It kind of adds to the aesthetic of the whole entire trailer park. And so what I've already done, you won't be able to see it, but if you download this build of the gallery and you remove the pizza that's on the roof, you'll see it then. But basically I came in and I got a live edit pizza box, one that will not spoil over time, and I sized it down and I placed it underneath the one in game, so that way if it spoils and it's getting on your nerves and you don't want to have some smelly pizza but you still want to have the pizza decoration, if you delete the one on the roof, the actual decoration that I placed down on the roof underneath it also ends up being placed down by the TV. It's a pizza box, it's not necessarily a full pizza, but I placed that down on the roof just in case you wanted to delete it because you don't like the smelly environment. But me personally, I kind of like it, but I know that you might not like it, and so there is an option to delete it if you want to, and you'll still have some sense of pizza decoration on the roof. But either way, I'm so sorry, I've been blabbering on. As you can see in this trailer, alongside with a little kitchen area, we also end up having a TV area. I didn't use the cheapest TV in the game, but I used one of the cheaper TVs, and I placed it down onto kind of like a crate box of maybe like fruit and veg and something, and then in front of it I've got, again, like I already said, one of them like live edit pizza boxes. That one that is on the floor, again, that will not spoil, that is purely for decorational purposes. But then next to it I placed down a video game like console thing, so Johnny and his roommate can like play video games together. But then also I placed down, you know, that like woohoo card box thing? We got it from the Lovestruck expansion pack, and there is 2 different types of games that your Sims can play. One's called like woohoo, Literally, I think that's what it's called. But then the other one is some sort of like guessing game, I think, off memory. But I played it down into this trailer because I just thought it would be a really fun thing to be able to interact with. But now moving over, I've actually started coming in and decorating Johnny's room. Now, like I've already mentioned, Johnny Zest is not his legal name. Like, this is not the name that I believe was on his birth certificate, when he was born. I believe that Johnny Zest's real name is Jonathan Landgrab. And going back to what I was talking about earlier, his original biography states that he was disowned by the Landgrabs, and so in my save file, I'm kind of like following this idea through. Now, when you enter a brand new save and you actually go into the Landgrab family tree, he's not to be seen for some reason. I'm not sure if it was an oversight on the Sims team and they just forgot about it, or I don't know, to be honest, it must have just been an oversight, but don't worry, in my save file, I've made it, so he is the biological child of Nancy and Jeffrey Landgrab. Now, the idea that I had for Johnny's backstory is growing up, he was a private school kid. He was someone that always had to go to all these different extracurricular activities. He was someone that was pushed through private school, and he was probably surrounded by people that he just never seemed to gel with. I mean, the Landgrab family as a whole, they're a very posh family is the best way that I can think to describe it, but they're this like old money family within the whole entire Sim franchise. Like, the Landgrab family have quite literally been in previous versions of the Sims games, but I imagine that he went to private school and he just never really gelled with anyone. I imagine he was, and it's really sad to say, but I imagine he was a little bit bullied in a sense, and people always used to make fun of him. And so he tried to kind of like spin that and kind of use it to a little bit of an advantage. And so that's where he discovered his love for comedy. I was thinking that for a while when he was in private school, he kind of took it on himself to be a bit of a class clown, but I feel like people would have been laughing at him and not necessarily with him, which sounds, again, that's really horrible to say, but I imagine that the people around him just really didn't like Johnny Zest, and at that point they knew him as Jonathan, but they just really just did not like him, and he just always felt like he had to embarrass himself to make people laugh. And after a while, he actually thought about the idea of maybe going to like a comedy club or something. He can maybe seem to make people laugh at private school, why not seem to make people laugh at some sort of like professional venue? Interrupting myself there really quickly because what I'm doing over here in the chest of drawers kind of ties into his storyline in just a second. But you can see I placed down some practice scripts, and then next to the practice scripts I placed down what is meant to be like fresh breath spray, and then I also placed down a little letter and then also a little key. Just wanted to point that out because it does come into fruition in the storyline. But I imagine that after a while he started going to comedy clubs. He was thinking, well, I can make people at boarding school laugh. Why don't I try and see if I can make people that I don't know laugh? And I mean, unbeknownst to him, the people at boarding school was more so laughing at him and not necessarily with him. But I imagine that when he used to go to these comedy clubs, he used to be surrounded by people that, they're regular people, not everyone's got a trust fund kind of thing. And so I imagine that he kind of felt some sense of like homeliness, if that makes any sense, or if that's even a word. But I imagine that he felt more comfortable at a comedy club than what he ever has done in his life. And so one day he said to his mum and dad, you know what, I don't want to continue with education. I imagine that Nancy and Jeffrey Landgrab probably wanted him to become maybe like a doctor or a lawyer or like a CEO or something like that. But I imagine that he said, I actually wanted to pursue a career of comedy. Now, cut long story short, Nancy, more so, was not a massive fan of this idea and basically gave him the ultimatum of, well, you can pursue comedy, but you're not allowed to live in this house. And then that is the reason why he now lives in a trailer. Now, in my head, he wasn't able to straight away, move out, put a deposit onto a trailer. I was thinking he was probably maybe like 19, 20, somewhere around that kind of age, only because I'm thinking I've given him tattoos. Tattoos take a while to accomplish, and he's got a full sleeve on both of his arms, he's got his chest done. Pretty sure I also end up giving him a thigh tattoo. So in my head, he was probably like 19, 20 when he first said to his mum and dad, I don't want to continue with, university, I want to become a comedian, X, Y, Z, and Nancy said, pack your bags, go out my house. And so I was thinking for a while he was probably couch surfing, and he was just staying kind of like round his friend's house, or like maybe like acquaintances' houses, if that makes any sense. I also did imagine that his probably last sofa that he slept on when he was like trying to find a place probably would have been the trailer that he now lives in, because in my mind part of the storyline was his now roommate that he lives with, he's in a band like I've already mentioned, and I was more so thinking he was the guitarist. And so you might have noticed in like the lounge room I ended up placing down like a guitar box, but then alongside a acoustic guitar. So I was thinking that his roommate is a guitar player, but maybe they used to have another roommate who maybe used to be like the singer or something, and maybe they moved out with their girlfriend because maybe their girlfriend fell pregnant or something. I don't really know, but I imagine that the trailer that he now lives in, he used to actually just sleep on the sofa. But pretty much the idea that I had for Johnny himself was, over this time he still kind of had a relationship with his dad. And so, I pointed out on his chest of drawers that I placed down a letter and then also a key. I imagine that Jeffrey actually still is in contact with him, and basically recently sent him a letter in the post and basically said, look, if you ever do want to come back home, I will always welcome you with welcoming arms. Because Jeffrey, his biological father, he has the traits of being outgoing, good and family orientated. It's his wife that's the problem. Like Nancy Landgrab, she's a snob, she's materialistic and she's ambitious. Like she's hard work, she is. But I imagine that Jeffrey would never disown his son, and so I've always imagined that he was always kind of like secretly keeping a relationship with him. And so maybe sometimes he sends him a little bit of money, and recently he has sent him a key to their mansion, which I'm actually yet to build, the Landgrab mansion. But maybe I might, when I build it, make it so that there is a garage, and maybe there might be like a little bed in the garage for if ever Nancy came around and was able to let Johnny move back in. Highly unlikely, but I could always play around with that idea. But that was a storyline for Johnny Zest. Kind of completely spoke over his roommate storyline, but don't worry, when I actually move on and I do the next trailer after this one, that roommate is actually a part of the storyline, and so I'll be able to talk about them then. But currently, as you can see, I've now moved on and I've started decorating the pink family trailer. Now this is the one that this household consists of a mum, her two sons, she's got a teenage boy and then a little boy, and then also there is I don't want to say father figure, but there is also a man of the house. He's not the boy's biological dad, but he's more so kind of like a new-ish romance, and I'm kind of debating between whether I should make it so the mum is already married to him or she is engaged to him and soon to be married to him. Now basically the idea that I had for this particular family, I started off with the mum because I just thought it would be so fun to have a woman living in this trailer park that was a little bit loopy. Like I imagine, like I already said, she's got loads of bangles, she's very colourful, she's very vibrant, and I imagine that she's recently discovered tarot cards. And so on the outside deck area I placed down a dining room table, but then I also placed down a tarot card kind of like stack of cards, and then some individual ones to make it look like there's been recently a reading. I imagine she probably can't even read them, but she probably just plays off that she can to make a little bit of money. Now in terms of her career, I was thinking that I'm going to make her so she is going to be a waitress in one of the diners in my save file, because I do have a plan of making an Oasis Spring diner in kind of like the community section. And so, I'm thinking that she's going to be a waitress, but when she's not doing that, she's doing readings for people. She probably just chats out of her backside. Like she probably doesn't even know what she's talking about, but she likes the idea that she knows what she's talking about. Now, I really like the idea of her having a fun name, and the only reason why I'm saying this is because I'm actually asking for suggestions for her name, because originally I really liked the idea of giving her Kitty as her name, like her legal name being Kitty. It kind of like adds into her aura, if you get what I mean. But the thing is, in my save file already, off camera, I've already created a family and the mum of the household is called Kitty, and so I don't really want to have, if I can help it, multiple Sims with the same names. And so if you can think of any names for this particular Sim, like Kitty, something cool, please do let me know, because I've been racking my brain, and do you know what, I've actually been searching on Google and it's just giving me cat names, genuinely. I don't want to name this woman Fish. But if you're open to giving me some suggestions, I would love you dearly. But I imagine that this woman, she works in a diner, she does tarot card readings, and she has got this partner, which I'm in two minds whether I should make it so they're going to be married or whether they're going to be yet to be married. Now basically her kind of like core storyline is this mum, she's got 2 boys. I imagine both her boys she had with 2 different men, and neither of them are related to her potential husband that lives in this trailer with her. But basically I imagine that she's had quite a hard time in her life, and it might be one of the contributing factors of why she is the way that she is. You know, she's always so like happy and bubbly, and maybe she is like that because, you know, she used to be really sad or something, and, you know, she's just trying to project happiness onto everyone else because maybe in her life she's had quite a hard deal. But basically the idea that I've got for this mum is she has one parent that still is alive. One of them I'm going to be making something in a graveyard somewhere, but the other one I'm going to be making a resident of my Sage Estates retirement home, which a while ago I built a retirement home in the world of Willow Creek, and it's a really good place to have, you know, like pre-existing townies families kind of like in there if I haven't got a home for them, or I still imagine that certain families had their parents still alive or something. But I imagine that she has a dad who is a resident of this retirement home, and it sounds really sad, but she's kind of aware that soon he's gonna pass away, and so she's aware that eventually she's not gonna be having to, you know, pay his pension. I say pay his pension, pay what is left of his pension towards the retirement home, because, you know, retirement homes, they're expensive, and I imagine that she's probably aware that eventually he's gonna go, and the pension that he has left over, or kind of like all the money, his assets, is going to be left to his daughter, which is her. And I imagine that in her head she's got this idea of, it sounds so sad because, you know, that's her dad at the end of the day, but once her dad goes, she's going to have this money that she can eventually move out of this trailer park, which I imagine she's lived in this trailer park a good chunk of her life, and I imagine she's always wanted to get out, but, you know, she's only ever worked in a diner. She makes a few extra tips here and there, but never enough to, you know, be able to actually get up and move. But she's had this idea that she can eventually move out of the trailer and she can buy a lovely new house somewhere else in the world of Oasis Springs. And I mean, of course, I just want to make it clear that she would rather her dad be around. I do want to make that clear. She's a lovely character. Like, I imagine this sim, she will be such a good friend to your sims. Like, she is lovely, but she's, you know, it's gonna be on her mind. Like, she's gonna know of this thing. But I imagine that her either partner or potential husband, and I'll tell you why I'm debating in a second, but they know about this and basically found out about it very soon after they got together, and her partner kind of saw her as a little bit of a money bag situation. The reason why I'm debating whether I should make this couple be married or not is because for the married idea, if I'm being honest, I just really liked the idea of taking pictures of them in like a marriage ceremony that was very like slap-low budget kind of situation. I just thought that'd be really fun if you came into their trailer and you've got these wedding photos, but maybe he was wearing like his swimming trunks because that's how much he cares about this actual marriage or something. But I liked the idea of having some really fun wedding photos dotted around, and then if he's married, he's now just kind of playing the waiting game for, you know, when his wife's dad, you know, eventually goes, he will come into money because legally, the way that he sees it, even though this is not how it works, but the way that he sees it in his mind is, well, her money is my money as well. And so that's why I imagine that he could tell, you know, the other resident of this trailer park, the toxic girlfriend that lives across the road, once I come into money, we're doing a runner and we're going to get out of here. But then I also really like the idea that maybe they're just longly engaged and they're yet to actually get married, and maybe he's going to wait until her dad goes, you know, her dad sadly passes away, and then as soon as he's passed away, because you never know, it could be a few years, but once her dad has passed away, he can then quickly get married, get all the documents signed, and in his head, half of his wife's money is his, even though it's not, but maybe we could go with that idea. I'm just debating whether I should make it so they're already engaged or if they're just married. Now, like I said, I imagine that the mum has 2 sons. She has a teenage boy and then a little boy. You would have seen I've already decorated their bedroom, and I've actually now moved on into the last trailer, but it kind of does tie into this one because, like I said, all of these storylines, they're intertwined. These sims, they know each other, but I more so was really focusing on a storyline for the teenager rather than the kid. Couldn't really come up with a storyline for a kid. You know, they're just a kid. They have a little like hopscotch outside, and maybe they play basketball, and maybe sometimes they like to lounge in the pool or like the inflatable pool outside. But for more so the teenager, I was thinking that they are in a relationship with the teenager that lives in this trailer. Now, like I've already said, the Sims that I kind of designed this particular trailer for is going to be a big sister and her younger sister. Now, the big sister herself, she has lived in this trailer for a few years now. She moved in maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, and like I've already mentioned, she used to have a 3-seater sofa, but she basically invited her younger sister to come and live with her because I imagine that her little sister just wasn't getting on with her mum and dad, and you know, her big sister kind of offered her her bed in a matter of fact. And so the way that I kind of designed this trailer, I mean, you can see already, but I placed down a love seat, like a 2-seater sofa, and then I made it so a bed was coming out of it. If you're curious, it is fully functional. Like I said, I have playtested this whole entire lot, and I ran into one problem, and it was in this trailer. But funny enough, it wasn't with the bed. Like, your Sims can still sleep either side the bed. But I had this idea that, yeah, this teen girl, she had a bit of a sour relationship with her parents. And so her big sister, she was probably someone that she used to vent to about it. And she just basically said to her one day, oh, why don't you come and move in with me? And then it kind of played into the storyline because the big sister of this trailer is in a relationship with Johnny's Zest roommate. Now, like I said, Johnny's roommate, he's in a band, and in my mind he is the lead guitarist, and I was thinking it would be really fun to have 2 different Sims live in the trailers but they be in a relationship with one another. And it actually ended up being there's 2 different situations like that, because this big sister is in a relationship with Johnny Zest's roommate, who is a lead guitarist, like I just said, but then also her younger sister, you know, she's been here for about a year or so, and over time she has got to know a fellow teenager of his trailer park who is now her partner. And so yeah, all of the relationships kind of like intertwined, but in my mind the big sister being in a relationship with Johnny's best roommate played out perfectly, because I imagine when her younger sister said to her, you know, I want to come and move in with you, she probably welcomed her with open arms, because the way that I look at it, she probably didn't really sleep in her own bed that much, and so that's why she was so willing to kind of give up her bed, give up her bedroom, and yeah, allow her younger sister to move in. Now, like I said, the teenage girl of this trailer, she's in quite an established relationship at this point with the boy next door, the teenager that is basically her next door neighbour. But pretty much the whole reason why I wanted there to be some teenagers in this trailer park in my save file is because even though I imagine that the big sister of this trailer probably isn't in here too much, you know, in my mind she's always going out with her boyfriend, going to all these different gigs that he's playing at, I imagine that the teenage girl and the teenage boy often like to spend sometimes on top of the rusty bus located at the back of the lot, kind of chilling out and using the bubble blower. However, remember how I said on top of the rusty bus there is also a telescope? Well, basically, in my mind, I was thinking that fairly recently they were both up there, you know, chilling out, that kind of thing, and one of them looked through the telescope, and instead of looking up at the sky, they looked directly into the neighbourhood and came across the boy's soon-to-be stepdad having a little snog with the girl that sleeps and lives in the first trailer, the one that is the toxic girlfriend and works in a bar. They basically witnessed the affair. And that is pretty much where I'm going to have this storyline in my save file be up to. And so yeah, that is also pretty much where I'm going to leave you, because I'm currently coming in and just decorating the last bedroom of this whole entire lot, which is the big sister's old room, but now the teenage girl's new bedroom. In here, the only one problem that I ran into with this whole entire lot was I placed down a yoga mat decoration a little bit too close to the mirror, and so in the uploaded version of the gallery there is no yoga mat. But other than that, I'm going to go around the room, finish it off, and that is pretty much it. So anyway guys, I'm going to end this voiceover right here. As always, you can download this build via the gallery. My gallery ID is JessicapieYT, or just search for the hashtag JessicapieYT or just the hashtag Jessicapie. As always, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, if you do like my content then please subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in my next Sims 4 speedrunning video. Bye guys.